Give me a clean heart, so you'll accept my praise. Handle my spirit, and clean hands I will raise. Purify me, so my worship may be pure. That I may worship, oh Lord, worship you in spirit. Oh Lord, I want to be used by you. Oh Lord, I do. Yes, I really do. Oh Lord, each and every day, Lord, show me the way. Give me a clean heart, so you'll accept my praise. And the right spirit, oh Lord, and clean hands I will raise. Purify me, so my worship may be pure. That I may worship you in spirit and in truth. Oh Lord, yeah, yeah, I wanna be used by you. I wanna be used. All for your glory.
Well, good evening, and happy new year. Happy 2023. It is so good to be back with you. I'm Pastor Robert Johnson from St. Mark United Methodist Church, where I serve as their lead pastor. And I am here for another broadcast, our first broadcast of Ignite for the year. And we are so excited. We got a great guest on. He's been with us before. And he, as far as I'm concerned, he is the leading voice in our state on the topic of leadership. One of the leading voices in the country. Has a new book coming out later this month, I believe on January 31st, entitled "When Everyone Leads." And so we are about to engage in a powerful, provocative, and I believe productive conversation on leadership. And so thank you for tuning in. Those of you that are watching, please share this broadcast on your page. Tag some folks, invite them to come on. If you are a leader in your church, if you're a family leader, community leader, uh, a Greek organizational leader, academic leader, a leader of any kind, I want to invite you to watch, to share, to participate in our conversation tonight. Reach out to your teammates, invite them to come on so we can engage with our guest for tonight. And I'll share his name in just a minute. We'll engage with our guest tonight on the topic of when everyone leads. What does it look like in an organization, a church, in a family, when everyone shares the burden of leadership? So excited about tonight's conversation. If you're watching this right now on my profile, please go to the St. Mark Facebook page or YouTube channel so that when you comment, when you ask questions, when you engage with us, we'll see it. If you comment on my profile, I don't know how Facebook works. I don't know why it's this way, Pastor Kyle, but that's just it is what it is. So we accept life on life's term. We accept Facebook on Facebook's terms. And so if you're watching on my profile, we want to see your comments. We want to know who you are. Go to St. Mark's Facebook page or St. Mark's YouTube channel so that we can see your comments and know who they are coming from. So let me bring on our other co-host, Pastor Yolanda. Good evening. How are you? Other than muted?
The mute button. Gotta love it. I'm well. How are you? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. I am well. given considering everything that I have been through over the past couple of months, including the passing of my father, I am doing very well. There's a part of me that feels numb, and then there's a part of me that feels fully alive. And I know that that sounds crazy and that sounds contradictory, inherently contradictory, but that's how I feel. It is what it is. Maybe that's our phrase for tonight. It is what it is.
It is what it is. You know, I like that phrase.
That phrase is very helpful in terms of helping us to come to terms with certain realities. Pastor Kyle, how are you, sir? Happy New Year.
Mute button. Oh. I'm doing well. And also, happy 11th day of Christmas.
It is the 11th day of Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And I only know that because my good friend, Cindy Watson, said yesterday on her Facebook post that it was the 10th day of Christmas. So when you said the 11th day of Christmas, if yesterday was the 10th day of Christmas, today has to be the 11th day of Christmas. I'm not good at math, but I think 10.
Great deductive reasoning.
Thank you. Thank you.
Carry,
Hey,
carry the
bring it.
one.
Right.
Yeah.
Bring it more.
Great deductive.
Good
Yes.
evening.
No, it's Happy New Year. It's good to be here. It's good to be having a good conversation together, and this will be a great way to begin the new year of Ignite.
Pascal, I just want to say this to you as we prepare to bring our guest on, and another special guest who's going to introduce our special guest, someone we're very honored to have on tonight, and I'll bring her on in just a second. But I wanted to say to Pastor Kyle, when I listened to our guest for tonight, Ed O'Malley, when I listened to him talk about leadership, it's amazing how it lines up so closely to what you've been teaching about leadership and power.
Mm-hmm.
It is so, the whole concept of when everyone leads, I'm assuming, I haven't had a chance to read the book. The book will come out on the January 31st. But that idea, that's in order for everyone to participate in leadership and to share that is about sharing power. So I am so looking forward to listening to you.
Yeah, I've thought that too about the Kansas Leadership Center approach and everything they're creating out there too. So I'm interested to see to hear more kind of what some of the concepts that he's drawing out, and to see in the ways that it kind of resonates with some of the things that I've been thinking about too.
Absolutely. And there's a Facebook user that said, good evening. Please go to the St. Mark Facebook page so we can know who you are. There's not a name with it, but we want to say hello to you. And Wayne Bell, who is the leader of our leadership team at St. Mark, is on with us. Wayne, thank you. And he's inviting others to come on and let's hear this hear this conversation with us. Wayne, brother, thank you so much. Wayne, I want to take this opportunity to say to you, we brag about one of our special guest hosts tonight is Janetta Everett, and she's going to be on in just a second. But I brag on her husband and what he has meant for St. Mark in terms of returning us to financial sustainability. But I want to say to Wayne, your leadership as chairperson of our leadership council is reaping rich dividends for our church. We are seeing some amazing things happening under your leadership, sir. I've been intending to say that from the pulpit, but now that while it's on my mind, I just want to say that to you, and thank you for coming on tonight and encouraging others to join us. Let's bring on, hey, Linda Sims, good evening. Thank you for tuning in. Linda, reach out to the St. Mark leaders, invite them to come on so that they don't miss this conversation. Let's bring on Janetta Everett. We're so honored to have this amazing lady on with us. Good evening, Janetta. How are you?
Good evening, Pastor. I'm just fine. And Pastor Yolanda, Pastor Kyle.
Good evening.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to everybody.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Yes, yes. I saw the pictures. You all had a house full of joy, Janetta. Oh my God. You have such a beautiful family.
Thank you. Thank you. It is all joy. And as you said, it is what it is.
Yes. And look, Janetta, they will all be back here in a week or so.
That's right.
as
That's right.
Vic Everett is installed into the Wichita State University Sports Hall of Fame.
That is correct. The Pizza Hut, Wichita State University Hall of Fame. After over 40 years of his ability to hold a record at Wichita State, he's being recognized and being inducted into the Hall of Fame. And we couldn't be more proud.
We are all proud of him. St. Mark is proud of him. I think all of Wichita is proud of Vic. And you all are so loved in this city. And Jeanette, I got to say this, there's nothing better than when you're with your family.
You're
And
absolutely
the
right.
pain of saying goodbye, but you know that you're going to, for some one reason or another, you're going to get to see them all again in a week or two. There's nothing better than
Absolutely.
that is absolutely great stuff. Good evening, Anthony Leaks, Wendelin Clark, and Cheryl Stevenson. Anthony and Cheryl are part of our leadership team. Thank you all for tuning in. Janetta, would you do us the favor of bringing on Ed and giving him the proper introduction that he needs? I know him. I've gotten to know him personally, but I want you to present him the way he should be presented, with his expertise, his influence in our city, in our state, and now this very significant role that he's taken on with the Kansas Health Foundation. We're in your hands, Janetta.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to bring on my friend and colleague, Ed O'Malley. Ed O'Malley is the founder of the Kansas Leadership Center and the only president and CEO that they've ever had for the past 16 years now. And of course, I am the board chair for the Kansas Health Foundation. So we are extremely happy to have him join us now as our current president and CEO of the Kansas Health Foundation. So as he led through the Kansas Leadership Center, we are excited to be able to see the community thrive the way that Ed can bring forth. Ed O'Malley has been a politician. He has been a community leader, is still a community leader. He is known nationally, locally, statewide, internationally. And the good thing is the way he put Kansas Leadership Center on the map through leadership, we're looking forward to the same thing happening for the Kansas Health Foundation. And I'm extremely excited about the book he has, When Everyone Leads. I've had the opportunity to preview it, and it's awesome. So Ed O'Malley from the Kansas Health Foundation, president and CEO, who not only talks a good game, he walks the talk. He leads us at the Kansas Health Foundation, not by an org chart, but by engagement. And when everyone leads, we all then do solve all the tough challenges together. So Ed O'Malley, welcome, and thank you for being here.
Wow. Thank you. And thank you, Pastor Kyle and Pastor Yolanda, for messing up the mute button, because it made me think about to make sure it wasn't messed up. So thank you. And Pastor Johnson, it is so awesome to be back on Ignite. I had so much fun. It wasn't quite a year ago, but it was almost a year ago. I had so much fun. Thrilled to be back. And you all need to give Pastor Kai down in Texas a hello next time you see him, please. But so great to be back. And Janetta, so great to have that kind introduction from my good friend and my chair of the board. So thank you, Janetta. Thank you so much.
Well, Ed, thank you for coming on. It's a delight. I so appreciate you doing this. I know you are very busy and have tons of things going on, but to take the time out to do this with us again, with less than a year, I really appreciate it. So let's make good use of your time. First of all, tell us what's going on with it. How were your holidays? How were the holidays for you and your family? How are you doing? And what's one or two things that have you really excited right now about our community? At least one thing, one of those things, make it about the community or our city.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great questions. So much good stuff going on. Let me start with the holidays. The holidays were wonderful for us. All of our kids are back at home for a while, which has been wonderful to spend time together and hang out with them. It was an uneventful holiday season, which was a perfect type of Christmas for us. So we're happy. We're all healthy and we're all together, which feels fabulous. Yeah, there is so much going on. In some ways, the holiday season came at a good time for me. I started at the Kansas Health Foundation about 5 months ago. And to have about 5 months to get into this new role, I'm still connected to the Kansas Leadership Center in a lot of ways, as you might imagine, but to be in this new role and then to have a little bit of a break, to have a little time off during Christmas to reflect, not just on the last year, which I usually do at the end of the year, reflect and evaluate the last year, think about the year ahead. But for me, it's really been a season of reflection on the last 16 years and a phase of my life that was about creating the Kansas Leadership Center and turning that over to other people. A new CEO will be selected for the Kansas Leadership Center in the coming weeks. So it's time to turn that over to someone else. And the last 5 months have been a great beginning in my new work at the Kansas Health Foundation. So it's been a great season of reflection, of anticipation about what's to come. So I appreciate the question. In terms of things I'm excited about, oh gosh, I mean, there's so much energy in the city right now. There's so much energy in the state. I feel like we're on an upswing in a lot of areas of our community. So I'm excited about that, but I'm also, you all know me well enough, Pastor Yolanda, you've heard me speak a bunch and we've been in discussions together. I'm never satisfied, and I always see the gap, and I always see where we are, but where we could be. And I think it's healthy. I think it's healthy. I think it's actually, I think it's in the Gospels. I think it's the way God and Jesus taught us to act and to think, is to see what's not perfected and work on it and engage others to work on it. I'm excited about all the people I'm seeing, all the opportunity we're seeing for people to do just that, to make this community better, stronger, healthier, a place where more people can thrive. And so that's a quick introduction, Pastor, but so much more to get into and to talk about and explore together tonight.
Absolutely. So I don't know if this conversation, I think this question may or may not have been somewhere in our conversation map. I know you can flow with this. You can think on your feet.
I had a small stint in improv comedy. When
Oh, well, you should be good.
You can go whatever direction you all want. I'll be okay.
That's new information to add to the bio.
I can't
that
promise
on.
to be funny, but I'll go wherever you want.
But you talk, I love it. When I talk to you, you are processing things in multiple fields. So you just made reference to Jesus and the Gospels. I know you do extensive study on leadership. You do extensive reflection on politics and the social sector. And you're finding ways, you're looking for these connections between these things and how the best ideas from these different fields are coming together. Would you say more about how that got started for you? What's pushing that? What's fueling that?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I think it's about, the question's really about integration.
Yes.
And I think for me, it starts from just a belief that everything is integrated.
Wow.
And our just to start with faith. Our faith life isn't something that happens at St. Mark's or on Wednesday night in a small group, and then we come back to it the next Sunday or the next Wednesday. I mean, it's every moment of every day, literally every second of every day. It's fully, so I think this idea of how do we, if we can exist in an integrated way with our head and our heart, and be in a meeting about work, but be thinking about faith, to be in one setting in the community, but realizing what this business group is talking about is applicable to what these nonprofits are also talking about, and seeing those connections and that integration. I just think it's, I'm not sure where it came from. I think maybe a lot of great mentors who helped me see the patterns of these things are all actually integrated. And then a lot of just trial and error of trying to make it work. But it might also, and I'm not saying I always live up to this, I don't think I do, but I think it's also about kind of a search for authenticity a search for, how do we just be Pastor Johnson, or how do we just be Pastor Kyle, or just be Janetta? How do we just be Ed, and have it be the same wherever I am?
Wow.
So I love your question, and
Yeah.
I need to think on it a little more. But
Yeah. Well, I see that in you, and I deeply appreciate that. I appreciate that you, as a community leader, as a business leader, as a political leader, as a leader in leadership development, that you think deeply about Scripture and about faith in a way that doesn't put us in this place of this super spiritual, otherworldly, esoterical stuff, but how that integrates into everyday wisdom and how we live our lives. You do that consistently.
I think I try to, and I think I probably don't do it sometimes as well, which would be interesting to explore. Like, what makes it hard? Like, what gets in the way of doing that? What gets in the way of fully integrating faith and art and Scripture? But I think a piece of it, though, for me is I just think there's a heck of a lot of wisdom there. The ideas in the book, even I don't think they're original. I don't think we've uncovered something for the first time. I think these ideas are historic and sacred, and I think all sorts of sacred traditions point to these ideas. Point to these ideas of inclusion and engaging the other and sharing power and being willing to go through the narrow gate. Like this stuff isn't new. It's been there, for a long time. And I think it kind of works. So we might as well keep going back to it, but yeah, it's just there and it works. And I think it's also maybe a way to stay connected to it.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm just playing with this in my head for a minute, Pastor Johnson, but yeah, I hope it's helpful to others. It could be a very selfish thing, though, that I'm doing for myself too, which by integrating, Scripture and my faith walk into my daily work in appropriate ways, it keeps me connected to it. And selfishly, I need that. So maybe it helps others, or maybe it just helps myself. I don't know.
It is encouraging, Ed. I think that's the key to total salvation. Mm-hmm. I think it's easier to compartmentalize your life. And I'm saying that as from a confession. It's easy for you to be this person at your day job. It's easy for you to be this person with your family. But when you can integrate it all together, you're living out your full humanity and you can connect with your purpose. So until you actually integrate your faith with every aspect of your life, I don't think you're truly living.
Yeah. Yolanda, I love that. And it's hard to know how to do that sometimes. And I mean, one of the things, frankly, that I love about coming on Ignite is I get to be very explicit about this integration. I get to be very, very explicit, and I love it. And the integration can look differently in settings where, for whatever reasons, I might feel like it's not, the opportunity to be as explicit might not be present. I still try to do it. I still try to find ways to do it. Like one example, at the Health Foundation, Janetta, as board chair, and I talk a lot about how we need the Health Foundation to be an organization that is able to connect with all sorts of Kansans, no matter their politics, no matter their background, no matter their point of view. That we want to make this state healthier, but to do that, we know that we need to fan the flames of leadership among all sorts of people, even those who don't agree on a lot of things. And I remember a couple months ago having some conversations about that topic. And what came into my mind was, and you guys might remember from our last conversation, I'm Catholic and we don't remember chapter and verse as well as you do. So if I get the book wrong or the chapter wrong or the verse wrong, feel free to correct me and forgive me. But what came to my mind in that conversation a few months ago when we were talking with some folks connected to KHF about how, should we try to reach multiple kind of perspectives? How do we do? What came to my mind was, Corinthians, I think it's chapter 9, 1 Corinthians, where it's the chapter that ends with, many run the race, but only one wins. And that's kind of where my focus always was for years and years. But that morning of this conversation, I happened to zero in on the paragraph before that final paragraph about running the race. And in that paragraph, Paul is in essence defending himself by saying, hey, look, when I'm talking to the Jews, I'm going to act like a Jew because I'm trying to reach them. And when I'm talking to a Gentile, I'm going to act like a Gentile and talk like a Gentile because I'm trying to reach them. And when I'm talking with the weak in spirit, I'm going to engage them the way they would engage. I'm going to connect with them as if, I'm weak in spirit, so I can connect with them. And so that, I love that story in the Bible. I think there's a leadership lesson there too about being so clear about purpose.
Yes.
You're willing to do what you need to do to reach people. But that's just a recent example of trying to, and I remember bringing that up in the meeting and not being preachy about it, but trying to use it as a reference point. So it can be tricky at times, but.
That is a great leadership. That is a great leadership passage, by the way. In terms of being very clear about what you're about, very clear about your why, and being able to understand how you can go into different cultures and appropriate the culture, and that culture doesn't define your why. You can still be clear about who you are and what you're about. But that's another example of how you do these deep dives into scripture and get beneath. A lot of times when we talk about the Bible, it's a very certain, we stay at a very religious level. I mean, we teach what it means religiously, and we don't teach what scripture means humanly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We talk about what it means to be a Christian, but what does it mean to be a human being?
Yeah.
And you do that so well.
Well, I got to tell you, I am a little nervous doing it with 3 pastors. So, it feels a little riskier because I might goof a little bit, but I welcome coaching.
Hey, typically, if you're doing that among pastors, you're in a safe place because they don't know how to do it. They don't know how to do it. Let me see if Janetta, I don't know if she's going to be able to be on with us the entire time. So hopefully she is. But I want to see if she wants to jump in, if she has a question. She knows how to get the best out of Ed. And so maybe Janetta has a question she'd like to pose that she knows that will bring out of you some things that are very important for us to hear.
All right, Ed, look out. Here we go, right? No, so just real quick, like Ed, I do want to indicate that what Ed was saying about the ability to communicate with different people, depending on where you are, is why he's very well respected in our community. It's why he's very well sought after, because he does have that ability to talk to people at different levels, if you will. Not talking down to them, not talking over their head. You can call it code switching if you like, whatever you want, but he has that ability to do that. But I also know that he has the ability to bring leadership activities to light. I've been knowing Ed for so long. My question Ed is going to be, as long as I've known him, he's always drilled into me about leadership not being a title. It is definitely an activity. And recently I asked someone, I go, so what do you do over at this organization? And so she told me her title. I said, I appreciate that. Now tell me, what do you do at the organization? And she goes, I like that because you're not interested in my title. Mm-hmm. And I was not. So I'm thinking the leadership where anybody and everyone can lead, whether you're in an organization, a church, or even in your home. Ed, would you agree? You talked about leadership because we can all do it together to solve problems. Yeah. And I know Joanna, so I know even in your home, it's not a hierarchy. So can you talk to us a little bit about how everybody can lead, and it's not about who's in charge?
Yeah, you bet, Janetta. Thanks for the question. I think what's really important, and one of the things we do in the book, and it's co-authored with Julia Fabris McBride, who is a longtime, incredible partner there at the Kansas Leadership Center. But one of the things that Julia and I are trying to do in the book is to really help separate the idea of leadership from the idea of authority, helping people see them as two different things. And I think most of us in the world, frankly, all around the world, where I've had a chance to work, we conflate those things. We think they're the same thing, that leadership and authority are the same, that the leader of the church is the pastor, the leader of the city is the mayor, the leader of the company is the CEO. And we think that's not a great way to think. And it's more useful. And we think we all know, by the way, that like deep down, we all understand that's not even true. We all have seen CEOs that don't exercise leadership. We've seen people in great authority positions struggling to exercise leadership. So we know, like deep down, that there's a difference between having a title, having a role, and actually exercising leadership. So we try to break that apart. And when you break it apart and you disconnect those things, a lot happens. And two big things happen. The first thing that happens when you stop thinking about those as the same, and you think about leadership and authority as two different things. Authority is a role, it's a title, it's fine. But leadership is mobilizing people to make progress on daunting challenges. When you separate those two things happen. Number one, a whole lot more people are implicated in like whose responsibility is it to find a way forward. You know, it's not just the pastor's responsibility. The pastor's got a role to play. But it's not just the CEO's responsibility. It's not just, you know, whoever the authority is. So that happens. The second thing that happens when you separate those things out is it takes a lot of pressure off those in authority, frankly. And because those of us in authority, I mean, if you're the CEO of an organization, a pastor of a church, a mayor of a town, a governor of a state, a principal of a school, right, the head of a hospital, we often put so much pressure on ourselves to solve the problems. And the daunting challenges can't be solved by authority alone. So when we think about these things as differently, it actually helps those in authority, frankly, realize the limitations of their role and maybe not take themselves as seriously as they were before. And it empowers others. And our toughest challenges, you know, they really have to be solved by all of us. You know, Janetta, you mentioned family. You mentioned Joanna. You know, when families are wrestling with tough challenges, you know, mom or dad usually can't solve it by themselves. You know, it's about how the family works together. You know, the 12-year-old child can intervene and make a difference in ways that are powerful and useful and often necessary. So I'm rambling a bit, which you all know I like to do that. Just I get going, and
No, you're not. You're spot on. You're spot on.
So are you saying that if I buy a social media platform for billions of dollars, that does not automatically make me, like, that doesn't endow me with leadership capability?
Just hypothetically?
Just hypothetically.
Yeah. Is Twitter up for sale again? Are you gonna buy it this time?
I might be able to afford it by now.
Yeah.
It's probably affordable now.
Yeah, you know, Pastor Kyle, right? So totally, that's right. And what's so fascinating though is, like, on one hand, we can look at something like Elon Musk and what he's doing with Twitter, and think to ourselves, just speaking from my own experience the last few months, think to myself, like, what is going on with this situation, and who does he think he is? And we get, but on the other hand, I think our default, which is not healthy, I think our default is to defer to those in authority, you know, to hope that somebody with authority or power will make the right choices and solve the things for us. I think we all maybe hope for a benevolent dictator who happens to agree with everything that we, prefer. But the truth is, it's about all of us, engaging differently.
So can I?
Ed, don't let it scare you when somebody makes a really good point on Ignite. I know this is a conversation. I'll yell, preach! So don't let don't let that frighten you if I do. But yes, by the way, Linda Sims wants you to say it again, the difference between authority and leadership, just to repeat that for her one more time. Yeah,
you bet, Linda. Hey, Linda, here's the way we think about it. Authority is a role, right? So it's a position. Somebody's a CEO. It's their job description, right? It's a role. Leadership is an activity. It's something that happens. And specifically, leadership is mobilizing others to make progress on daunting challenges.
Wow.
So you can be somebody in an authority role and do your part to help mobilize others. It's possible for people in authority to exercise leadership, but just because they're in authority doesn't mean they're actually exercising leadership. And likewise, on the other end of the spectrum, it's possible for somebody not in authority, not with a big role or a big title. It is possible for them to exercise leadership. And we have incredible historical examples of that happening. My favorite one is the example of Rosa Parks, who sat in a different spot on the bus and was not the elected chairperson of the committee. Those of us who've studied that moment know she prepared for that exercise of leadership, but she wasn't the CEO of the Southern Baptist Convention, right? So you can lead whether you have authority or not. I hope that helps, Linda.
Ed, can you talk a little bit? I'm glad you mentioned Rosa Parks, who is my shiro. And
mine is Harriet, Janetta. Mine is Harriet Tubman, by the way, but don't get me started on that.
Oh, and Rosa, she and I connect because she did this like 8 days before I was born. So I've just kind of marked her there. But what she did was extremely risky, right? Leadership in itself
is risky.
And if you kind of talk to that, because someone has to take responsibility. People look, whether it's you, Pastor Johnson, whether it's you, Ed, or you, Pastor, any of you are considered leadership in the way we've always known leadership as a title. Yeah. That means you're in charge, you're at the top, and here's how it goes. When really it's all of us together. But it's risky because someone has to take the responsibility of it. Ed?
Yeah, Janetta, I think because leadership is risky is why it hardly ever happens. I think it's liberating.
Great.
I think it's liberating to assume leadership doesn't happen very often. It's really rare. If we assume it's rare, maybe we won't feel so bad for not doing it today or tomorrow, right? And maybe we can really focus on, okay, I want to exercise leadership in this moment coming up. I'm going to prepare for it. I'm going to get ready for it. But I think it's really rare. And I think it's rare because it's risky. Because when you're exercising leadership, you are disrupting things. You're trying to get groups of people to do something different than they've been doing. And leadership is always about change. But it's not about good change. Sometimes people say, people are afraid of change. That's not true. If I had a winning $500 million lottery ticket and I was going to give it to St. Mark's, that would change things at St. Mark's, right? But my guess is you're okay with that change, right? So it's bad change. It's change that we think we're going to lose something. Think about in the Gospels, all the people resisting Jesus, he was articulating a vision, a way of being that threatened their way of living and working and thinking and working, right? Yeah, their very existence, right? So it was the loss that comes with Jesus's message
Yeah.
that made people resist. And so when you're exercising leadership, you're promoting change, but it's a type of change that might have some hard things to swallow, and that's risky because people don't want to do hard things usually. So Jeanette, I love that you asked the question. By the way, you're my shero, Jeanette.
Aw,
Just so you know.
thank you.
It does. I remember when I was preaching at St. Mark's, one of the passages of the gospel I talked about that I love, and I can't remember the chapter or verse, but it's a part in the gospel where, Jesus said, "I came to set the earth on fire."
Yes.
And then he went on to say, "And how I wish it were already blazing." And I think, to me, like, I used to read that as, I came to set the earth on fire. We got to be strong. We got to be tough. We got to be radical. We got to be, and I can still read it that way, but it's the second part that really speaks to me now. The second part where he says, "And how I wish it was already blazing." How I wish I didn't have to do these uncomfortable things. How I wish I didn't have to do something that was so risky. And he knew what was going to happen, right? So I love the question, Janetta. And I think we all,
Great question.
and so part of it is, just to go back to the book for a minute, what KLC has learned over the 16 years is when you create a culture where everyone is leading, it means lots of people are exercising leadership. Lots of people are taking a little bit of risk rather than one person taking tons of risk. And if you spread that out, it just makes it more likely that we can do it.
As a kind of word of encouragement in our churches, I will say that some of the best ministries that have come to fruition in my church settings have not been my brilliant ideas.
Yeah.
I wish I could take credit for them, but where they've come from is people who, they see an opportunity, they see a need, and they're in a position to do something and to bring it to light within our congregation and hit the ground running. So at my last church, we had a MOPS ministry, Mothers of Preschoolers, and so that was an area I couldn't lead in.
Right.
But we happened to have some mothers of pre-K kids in our church, and they got together and they created this ministry and reached a bunch of women in our community who needed support and care. And this was a flourishing ministry for a season. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't create that, and I couldn't facilitate that. It was out of my hands, but it was a wonderful ministry for that season of our church.
Wow, great example. So my example of that, one of my mentors, his approach to ministry, everybody leads. And so at that church, they had when I first time I visited, there were 120 ministries listed. There were 120 different ministry life group opportunities. And he would tell people he started none of them. Not a single one. Every single one came from a lay person in the congregation who said, "Pastor, I think we need to do this." And he would say, "If you are passionate about it, do it. And then I will lead at the upper level to make sure that you have the resources and the opportunity to do it." But it was not his idea. So that was that multiple level of leadership and him empowering others to make decisions.
Wow.
On the other hand, the denomination that I'm currently in, and I love the United Methodist Church, and I think everybody knows about the fracturing that's happening in the United Methodist Church. But before this issue started fracturing our denomination, it had been declining since 1981. Since 1981, the United Methodist Church has been in severe numerical decline, and it's just constantly. But if you get behind the curtains, what happens is people get elected to superintendency level, Episcopal level, and they get in a room and nobody exercises courageous leadership. So then what happens is that you have people appointing people to churches and making safe appointments. And a safe appointment is, this is an appointment that nobody's going to get mad at me about, that the church isn't gonna, if anybody gets mad, it's the people at the local church, but they don't have any power to really do anything about it. So they get in a room and they make safe appointments. And as they were making safe appointments, nobody's showing courageous leadership. The numbers are steadily declining. So I think this whole fracturing that's happening right now, in many ways, is sad, but I think it's going to awaken segments of this once one denomination. And there are going to be segments that are going to come alive because they're going to have to exercise courageous leadership in order to survive. They're going to have to give your definition of leadership. Say it for us one more time.
Mobilize leadership is mobilizing others to make progress on daunting challenges. And you're describing a daunting challenge in the denomination. You bet.
Yes. Janetta, great question. Keep going, Janetta.
So Ed, just a follow up to that. One of the chapters in the book was about it's not leadership if it's not about the most important challenges.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right. So if you could just talk about it a little bit, because I do know even in the church,
this book is hot.
I do know even in our church, we think we're doing the leadership and we're making these decisions. But if it's not about the most important challenges, is it really considered the leadership activity? So,
Yes.
Hey,
you cannot die on every hill. You've got to decide what are the battles that I must win, not the battles that I win, or do I want to win, but what are the battles that I must win? I don't know if that's what Ed means, but that's my interpretation.
I love it. I love it, Pastor Johnson. I love it. And I think it does connect to what we're talking about. What we're getting at with that part of the book is, if the thing that concerns us the most, if our biggest challenge is declining membership, you just talked about that. Let's just use that one as an example. That's the thing that needs our leadership. If you ask people, hey, when you think about the future of our church, think about the future of our family, think about the future of our company, think about the future of our community, whatever context you want to do. And you think about the future of our organization, what concerns you the most? Okay. And then they're going to tell you the big things, right? And then if you say, hey, when you think about the future of our church, of our organization, of our family, whatever context you're in, what's your greatest aspiration? They're going to have answers, and they're big and they're important. And when you start with those two questions, leadership is often about asking the right questions. What you really are doing with those questions is you're getting people to articulate the things that are most important to them, and to the community, to the church, to the organization, whatever your context is. Leadership is about that stuff. That's the stuff that's crying out for more leadership. And so we shouldn't pat ourselves on the back if that stuff remains, but we've made some interesting progress on the praise and worship band over here, or we've made some interesting progress on a new website for our organization, or that's all fine. That's maybe management, and that's fine and important. But let's not fool ourselves and call it leadership. Leadership is about the big stuff. It hardly ever happens, and it'll happen more often if we all do our share of it. And let me just say real quick, I got to brag on the Kansas Health Foundation team, my colleagues real quick, because I'm having so much fun working with them, because I'm putting, as you might imagine, all the ideas. I'm trying my best to put all the ideas, in the book into practice with the team, and it is awesome watching the ideas percolate from the staff members, watching them engage. Watching them, in essence, take turns exercising leadership, taking turns challenging ideas, initiating ideas. It's pretty darn cool. So I had to brag on them for just a minute. They're doing a phenomenal job, and it's a honor and a privilege to work alongside them.
Wow. A biblical example of that, I think, might be, when Goliath is standing before the Israelites and they're shivering in fear, shaking in fear, and David comes out. The issue is Goliath. The issue isn't the 1,000 other guys. They're not scared and they're not frozen in fear because of the 1,000 other soldiers. It's Goliath.
Yeah.
So David has to deal with that. That's the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
And so that I appreciate. I love that. That's in the book, Janetta. That's in the book. Oh,
You know,
my God.
that is in the book, and there's only 2 more things, and I'm
No,
done.
Janetta, this is great. Janetta, please go.
No,
We
so
love
there's
you doing this.
And this would be like one of the things for those of us who are watching, and we want to say, okay, so where do we do? Where do we fit in? What can we do? And like, I think it was chapter 12 was like, start with authorizing yourself to lead. That's one thing.
Wow.
Authorize it. And then, and skips over. I like the part that says, start with your part of the mess.
Yeah.
Woo!
So if you
Man,
can kind of tell,
we're gonna do an altar call after this Ignite conference.
I mean, I think a lot of us, we do kind of forget to look at us and don't look in the mirror, but we all can be leaders, as you're indicating, by the activities we do, but we have to authorize ourselves to lead and look at the mess, look at our own mess. So if you can talk to that.
Yeah, you bet, Janetta. It gets back to we got to think about these as 2 different things, right? And once you do that, a lot happens. If you keep them together, it's really hard to really go down any of the roads we're talking about. But if you separate leadership from authority, you think about 2 different things, lots of opportunity kind of emerges, including connecting to what you're talking about here. If it's an activity, if leadership is an activity, it's not a position. I don't have to be hired to go do leadership. I don't have to be given a certain title to go do leadership. If it's an activity, well, then I can just do it. I might not be successful at it, but I can try. I can do something. If leadership is mobilizing others to make progress on our most daunting challenges, well, I can intervene. I can ask a question that might be about that. I can try something. So you can just start. Just start with you, right? Just start with you. And the biggest mistake, I think, not the biggest, one of the biggest mistakes people make when thinking about exercising leadership is they think they have to be invited. And they won't be.
Wow.
They won't be invited to lead. Leadership is disruptive. Nobody invites disruption on themselves. It just doesn't happen.
Wow.
It's a provocative act to disrupt a system, an organization, a family, a group. It's for good ends, right? But nobody's going to invite you to do that. What they're going to invite you to do, all of us, what we're all invited to do every day, consciously and unconsciously, implicitly and explicitly, all day long, we're invited to maintain the status quo. That's what people are doing. They're inviting you to maintain the status quo, to keep the system running the way the system's running, right? Whatever system we're talking about. Leadership is saying, no, we need a different reality. And so I got to care about that different reality so much that I am willing to step outside the norms of this system, whatever it is. And I'm willing to ask a tough question. I'm willing to try something. But just to get to this part of the mess thing, because I think there's a great biblical connection for that too, right? So we hear in the Gospels, stop criticizing the speck in your neighbor's eye when there's a plank in your own, right? To me, I take that to mean you can't actually control the speck in your neighbor's eye. Like you can't, you literally can't. That's her eye, right? You can't go get the speck out of it. But you can do something with your own, right? And if the Gospels teach us that our eyes are the window to the world, right? That if we're not seeing things correctly, if we are interpreting things wrong, if we are not open to different interpretations of things that are going, That's on us. And we can actually fix that. We can actually control our part of the mess. We can't control somebody else's.
That's
And
right.
look, fixing our part of the mess might not be enough to solve the problem. It might not. But you can literally fix your part of the mess, and that's something. And maybe it'll start to model for others. So thanks for that question, Janetta. I think it's one of the most provocative parts in the book. And it's a hard pill for people to swallow, that they've got a piece of the puzzle that they own, that they got to solve for, a piece of the mess.
Absolutely. I do love that one part that says, start with the one person that you can control.
That you can control.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and I gave the Christian reference point for that, but that's in all kinds of sacred texts. I mean, that is Gandhi saying, "Be the change you want to see in the world."
That's right.
That is Rabbi Hill, saying, "If not you, who?
And who?
If not now, when?"
When.
Right? It's about that speck and that plank and that message from the Gospels, but it's even beyond that one. Yeah.
And it's also a piece of wisdom that comes from the Bishop of Hip Hop, Biggie, who said, "We can't change the world unless we change ourselves." So there's another in one of the great faith traditions, one of the leaders of the great faith traditions. I've got to give Wayne Bell asked an important question, and I want to put it out before both Ed and Janetta. How might we encourage those outside positions of authority? I think you just answered that, to exercise leadership. We just talked about that. Is embracing, change what you can change, which is starting with yourself. But then how can we cultivate new leaders and new voices? That part of the question.
Because you said that don't wait for an invitation because you're not going to get invited. But I think this question is, how can we, as people in authority roles in those positions, how can we resist the gravitational force of status quo in order to create contexts in which leadership is done by the masses? Maybe that's broadly if we're creating culture, but then also drawing that out of individuals as well. Because I think this is my question too.
Wow, that's a great question. I need to just pause and inhale that question. Man, this is another. Janetta set us up. This is another great question. If anybody from St. Mark is listening, other than those if you're listening, please let's hear this answer.
Oh, now, Janetta, I feel like we got pressure on us now, Janetta. This one was asked to both of us, Janetta. You want to go first? You got a thought?
Am I on mute? Darn. Actually, no, Ed, I'm going to pitch that one to you. But I think in the book, it was really under, I believe it was chapter 15 or in that area, where you really basically started telling them almost step by step what we can do to get more voices included. Considering your immunity to change. Consider some people don't want to change, right? So that's one thing to do. Consider your ability. If you want to get invited, be a voice. Are you open to change? Yeah. That's one of the things I believe we can do. And why is it so hard? What was it? Believe that there really is a simple question to our most important challenges, not just to be a voice, just to have a voice at the table, but be a voice and bring something to the table. You know what I'm saying? Because if you're just sitting there, you're wasting a seat, okay? And you
praise Janetta
and bringing something to the table. So how do we get more people included, new leaders? I believe you got to kind of show up. Yeah. You got to be there. You got to be bold enough to speak up. And you got to be willing to kind of accept some of the solutions that are being placed. and not always be a naysayer.
Yeah.
But you can sometimes just, I know that there are some people, they have water cooler conversations after meetings. Speak your voice. This is me talking, Ed. You probably have a better solution.
I know. I
Speak
like
your
it.
voice while you're there, and don't go to the parking lot with a different conversation.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's me.
I love it. I love it, Janetta. I'll add a couple things to it, but that was all gold, especially that last part. Yeah, I've always felt like, a group is really a healthy group when the discussions taking place at the water cooler or in the parking lot are the same as the discussions happening in the meeting. And that's hard to do, but like that's kind of a way to notice. Like, are we healthy?
Yeah.
So I love what you're saying. I think what I would add, and specifically to that question of like, what can we do to encourage those not in authority to exercise leadership? What can those in authority do to help get more exercise of leadership from others? What's on my mind is kind of like, number one, I think I slightly misspoke before. I think it's very rare for anybody to invite you to exercise leadership. I think the typical situation is you're not, right? So frankly, a CEO, a pastor, a school principal who has just read When Everyone Leads, I hope they're enlightened and they are going to be inviting people to exercise leadership. But here's what I think you got to do. You have to protect them. When people exercise leadership, remember what we talked about before? It's risky.
Oh my
Yeah.
Right? It's provocative. It's about change that people might not want. So if you start encouraging other people, if you're somebody in authority and you start encouraging other people in your organization who don't have authority to exercise leadership, and they take you up on it, and they do something that's very outside the group norms and disruptive, you better protect them.
Wow.
Even if it's what we don't want, even if it makes us uncomfortable.
Right, Pastor Kyle. Wait.
Hey, Kyle, because this is what we do. If the person does something that I personally like, they get protection. If they do something that I don't, if they do something that I don't like, then it's like I didn't know that was going on with.
Right, but isn't that so hard? I mean, we're laughing, but so can we, as somebody in authority, can we be self-aware enough to when somebody has done something disruptive, but let's just say it's not in a way we like, it upsets us, it puts us in a tough situation. Can we be self-aware enough in that moment to catch our breath and recognize this isn't about me right now. I've got to protect the other. I love that this person just did something disruptive, and I love that more than I'm frustrated by how it's making me feel. So I'm going to honor what they did. I'm going to, and this, we're talking little things here. This doesn't have to be major, but somebody does something highly disruptive, and the group is like, what the heck's going on? The congregation, the church, the organization, the company, like why it's and for the CEO or the pastor to say, I just want to really lift up what Susie just did. I think it's really important, like that little bit of affirmation is a way to protect somebody, right? One of the stories we talk about in the book is I was blessed to work with an incredible young man named Thomas Stanley for a long time. He came to work at the Kansas Leadership Center right after he graduated from college, started working with us back in 2008. Unfortunately, he tragically died in September of 2019, struck by lightning, half a mile from the end of a 50-mile race. Thomas lived the ideas in this book better than almost anybody. And he also drove me crazy a lot of times. He was always disrupting things, but we had this relationship where like I saw a lot of value in that disruption. I saw what he was doing as really overall really healthy. Sometimes he would frankly screw it up. Sometimes he would miscalculate, and the disruption would be like a really kind of a big pain for me, and it would cause trouble, and I'd have to go clean up a mess. But overall, what he did was beautiful, and I viewed part of my role as protecting him, helping him know, don't stop. Don't. It's kind of like in basketball, right? I mean, Wayne's son could teach us all several lessons in basketball, but you know, if a shooter is a shooter, she's got to keep shooting, you know. And if she's having a bad night and she's missing some things, the coach has got to tell her, keep shooting.
Yeah.
I think we have to do that in our roles of authority. Tell our folks, keep exercising leadership. I got you. So,
someone on here said, especially then, the best way to run person away from your organization, your business, your church, is to ask them to do something, they do it, and then you shoot them down, or you don't protect them. That is one way for them to walk away and not even try again. So I don't think it was Heather, somebody said, especially then, when you don't like their ideas, you still have to protect them. And you can agree to disagree. Yeah, those are some things that we have to do as Christians.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it's hard. It's hard. You know, it's hard to like be self-aware enough, which is another reason why we need lots of people around us exercising leadership. Lots of people who can, you know, pull me aside and say, "Hey, Ed, I think this is one of those moments where you need to do some of that protection of Thomas thing." You know, I'm like, oh God, thanks. Didn't realize, you know, like we need people who, and that's it. By the way, what I just role played right there, that's a leadership intervention.
Yeah.
You know? Hey, pastor, you know, what so-and-so did was really risky for them. You might not have realized that, but you know, pat them on the back, you know, lift them up. You know, I know it didn't work, but you know, like people in our life to do that for us helps, but it's hard. It's hard.
Wow. You all have done something that has not been done in 56 years. Y'all have got me speechless. I literally don't know what to say, Janetta. That's the first time in 56 years. If any of my school teachers are watching, they're probably like, there is a God. There's a miracle to happen. This guy.
Take note, Pastor Yolanda.
Well, I will say I know we're wanting to be aware of the clock. I am curious if, as we kind of close things down, if there are certain aspects of the book that you feel like this is my baby right here. This is
Great question.
just what my heart and soul of the book right here.
Wow. Yeah, I've written some other books. This one, it does feel like I got my whole heart and soul into it. And the part, the opening of the book, we call it a leadership manifesto. We were struggling to figure out how to open the book, how to start, and we just decided, let's be as frank and as blunt as possible, and open with a 10-point manifesto about what we think leadership really is. And those few pages where we describe that 10-point manifesto, which, you know, talks about the stuff we've been talking about tonight, but just in a very succinct way. That's probably my favorite part of the book.
Can you walk us? Can you just read through the, Janetta, one of you? Can you all do the 10 points just quickly? Just read through them.
I'll tell you what. I'll read this a little bit. It would take too long to read the whole thing. It's about 8 or 9 pages.
Okay.
But let me just I'm just going to read one part of the manifesto, part 3.
Okay.
All right. Manifesto part 3. Leadership isn't authority, being the boss, vision, charisma, a servant's heart, an inspirational speech. Leadership could involve these things and many more, but it isn't literally these things. You can imagine where we eventually go in that manifesto: leadership, mobilizing others to make progress on daunting challenges. Yeah, that's probably my favorite part.
Is the book out, or is it, when does it come out?
It comes out January 31st. You can pre-buy it on Amazon or at Watermark Books or your favorite bookstore, wherever you are. But technically January 31st is the publication date. And we're really excited about this one. And it's the first time the Kansas Leadership Center, the first time I've worked with what I'd call a real publisher. So it's a nationwide publication date, and we're excited to see what happens. And the thought is, can this book get these ideas in the hands, in the head, and the heart of a lot more people? We're going to find out. We hope it will.
It will. We're going to, as a matter of fact, I just want to say now that St. Mark, we will, at least our leadership team, I'm going to have us ask us to read it together when it's released and to go through it. I just want to thank you so much, Ed, for coming on. This has been an amazing conversation. And Janetta, you just added amazing value, incredible, just immeasurable value to this conversation. I've got to say this, Janetta, you made a statement about that brings something to the table. Don't just, if you're at the table, but you're not mobilizing people to make progress on daunting challenges. If you're just, then you're taking up space.
Yeah, you're wasting somebody else's
You're wasting space. And I've got to tell this story. You've got to. So one of the people that I respect most, my dad just passed. He's the best man I know. I have the highest of respect for Ron Holt. I love the way Ron is a quiet influencer who gets things done and maintains integrity at such a level that people trust him because of his integrity. But we were dealing with a profound challenge, maybe the most significant challenge I've dealt with since I've been the leader at St. Mark. And things were crumbling. I mean, I didn't know if I was going to survive that. And so my superintendent said, hey, reach out to Ron Holt. Let's pull him in and tell him we need his help. When I called Ron, he said to me, I'll do it. But there's one person that has to be on the team, Janetta Everett. He says, if you call Janetta, and if she says yes, we'll do it. And so I hadn't really had a chance at that point to engage with Janetta. But when he said that, because of my respect for Ron, then I was like, wow, but then when I started working with her, you talking about coming to the table and saying, you got me for 45 minutes. You got me for 45 minutes. But for the 45 minutes you got me, you have gold. And incisive, decisive, courageous, risk-taking, but never emotional. And that was the thing. It was like she was always able, and I'm sure there was a lot of emotion going on internally, but it never got in the way of her working her way through all of these levels of decisions in a way that will mobilize us to deal with a daunting challenge. So Janetta, the questions you raised tonight, that came across. So thank you so much for coming on. Ed, thank you so much. I will not embarrass you and say publicly this second request I've made of you.
It's all up to my wife. I got to talk to her right afterwards.
But hopefully we will be hearing from Ed. Hopefully maybe sometime soon in the near future. We will. Pastor Kyle, this was great. I'm so glad you were here tonight once I saw you were going to be on, I was so looking forward to you engaging with Ed. And when the book comes out, you and I maybe can come together and with him plan a webinar with other pastors and church leaders across our denominations and talk about this issue of leadership. Pastor Yolanda, thank you for coming on. I know you've got a million things going on, including trying to rest before this next semester starts back up. Thank all of you all for participating and watching tonight, engaging in conversation. Thanks for all the comments. Wayne Bell, thank you for helping us get our people on to hear this conversation. And we look forward to seeing all of our leaders on Saturday at 10 a.m. as we engage. Cheryl Stevenson is going to present a strategic plan. that's going to help organize some things so that we can get more done more effectively and more efficiently. So I look forward to seeing all of you all at 10 a.m. Any other announcements, Pastor Yolanda, that we need to cover? All right, I didn't think so. Pastor Kyle, would you do us the honor of praying both for Ed and Janetta, and then praying for all of us as we say goodbye?
Yeah, God, we are grateful for Ed and Janetta and the work that you are doing in their lives and the ways that you are empowering them to serve our city and our state, and the words of wisdom that you grant them. And we're just so grateful for this conversation tonight and for the opportunities that we have to learn from one another. And we do pray that you would raise up leaders among us in our churches and in our organizations, places of work, that you would help us to see the ways that you are using us to make to implement change wherever we are, and perhaps no more especially than in our families. So Lord, we thank you for the ways that you empower us, because we are made in your image, and you have granted us this beautiful ability to impact the world around us. So we thank you for tonight, and we pray that your presence would go with us. In your name we pray. Amen.
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 Folks, good night. May we go and all of us engage in the work of mobilizing people to make progress on daunting challenges. Ed, thank you again. Janetta, thank you again. Good night to all of you all.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.